Greetings, everyone. My name is Buck Business. Konnichiwa, I'm Kawaii Critic, and today we're actually here to re-review My Little Pony Season 7, Episode 13, The Perfect Pear. Now, after watching our review, we felt that we did not do this episode enough justice, and the review itself, even just by itself, wasn't really that great. So we apologize on our part that we weren't able to do it enough justice. So that is the main reason why we are doing this again. So we begin the episode with Apple Bloom Chan walking toward the stand, and she meets Grandpere San. And after getting some pear jam for free, she walks home and she encounters Applejack San and Big Mac San, and their reaction is of pure shock and almost rage as they are sort of eerie of this sort of feud that apparently they've brought up to Granny Smith's son before, and she had freaked out in the past. So, doing their best to avoid it while she comes on by, they try to hide it beneath, and she just sort of walks over it to go to use the restroom, or as she puts it, washing up. From there, the Apple children decide that they want to go to Goldie Delicious house and find out more information about what their parents were like, or what the situation was like. This feud is what initially drew them to this situation. So, we learn about Bright Mac and Buttercup as children, and yes, they do look a bit young in their baby forms and are able to talk fully, which is a little weird. It's not unseen, I suppose, but it's probably a very rare occurrence, since other babies in the more current timeline seem to have a lot more difficulty speaking. But nonetheless, these two form a bond at a very early age, which comes into question something that I've heard a lot from both reviewers and reactors alike, in saying that this is a very Romeo and Juliet story. Which, to an extent, yes, the families are rivals and they fell in love, sure, but that is about the extent of it from this story. The rest of it doesn't really seem to line up. I mean, they met as children. That is not the same exact story as Romeo and Juliet. I mean, Romeo and Juliet met as teens and fell in love in a few days. By the way this story is told, it looks like it took a bit more time for them to form an actual relationship. I mean, Bright Mac had a crush on Pear Butter from the baby forms, but it seemed like it took until the second flashback for them to start to have deeper feelings for each other, and that going both ways. So, we get more of that information from Burnt Oak, where they were racing himself, that being Burnt Oak, and Bright Mac were racing, and then, well, I believe I'll let Kawaii Critic take it from here. Ah, yes, Mr. Bright Mac-san saw that pony booty, and got, as Burnt Oak-san put it, distracted with that love, love, love. So he sort of swerved all the way in that direction and crashed into the water silo, only to see younger Grandpere San march forward and see this incident and then blame Buttercup-san as Bright Mac-san was pulled away. But Bright Mac-san came back and admitted his actions, and that caused that familiarity with Applejack's son to correlate. And from there, they learn more about this relationship that was developing, and they also learned that apparently Mrs. Cake also knew more so Buttercup. So they went over to her establishment, and from there they learn more about the actual furthering of this relationship. And in the flashback, we see now one of the most romantic, beautiful songs, and probably one of just the better songs of the season easily, and probably one of the better songs of the show. It's just so very sweet and gentle, and there's a lot of story stuff happening with non-dialogue on top of the actual singing itself. There's a sort of double story, if you will, that's happening through the song, and it's just so great. Ah, yes. So after the lovely song, the two of them are about to share more romantic feelings, but it cuts in two as we're interrupted by another shell shocker of an announcement as Pure Butter is told by Grand Pear that they are getting ready to move to essentially Vancouver, or I believe that's Upper Canada. I'm not entirely sure, but anyways, somewhere in Canada where it's a bit colder. The equivalent of that, I assume. Again, not too familiar with areas in Canada, so I apologize for that, but at any rate, we see that Brightback is getting ready to make preparations to do something to fix this. So from there, we see Brightback-san get Mayor-san on this whole secret wedding that he preps up. So he proposes, and she says yes right away at that point in time, but their marriage is almost interrupted, and we see Grandpa and Granny-san both come up and essentially almost ruin the wedding, but it's too late. They do get married. And then, as Grandpa-san is getting ready to leave and wants Buttercup-san to leave, she says that she's also now part of the Apple family as well, and that sort of gets to Grandpa-san on a deeper level. He lets that rivalry overshadow this potential relationship with his daughter to absolutely crumble within possibly the last moments they got to spend time with each other, which is probably the most heartbreaking part of this episode. I mean, she's just an emotional wreck as she has to choose, according to Grandpa-san. Yes, indeed. It is the most difficult decision, but she does decide to stay. And a part of me can't help but feel like this actually does hint at why they might have passed away, or at least in the case of Buttercup. I'm gonna take a wild guess because a lot of other reviewers and reactors assume that we are going to get an official reason why they are dead. But my best guess as to why they passed away is Buttercup gave birth to Apple Bloom, but even at that point, she was still being just absolutely devastated over that decision, and it's haunted her for probably a few years, right? And then that haunting of that memory just sort of wilted away at her life, and she sort of just passed away from an emotional state after giving birth. And after that, the emotional grief probably passed over to Bright Mac, and then he passed away. That is my best guess. And I know that's a bit dark, but it's probably the most realistic of things that I could have thought of as far as theories or anything on that level is concerned. But apparently, Apple Bloom somehow knew, as well as the other two Apple children, about this tree, which is probably one of the odder moments on top of the one baby moment in this episode, I should say. Them knowing the tree's location is a bit bizarre. I mean, did they know before this story where that was located and just never knew the reason it existed until now? It is so bizarre that they knew beforehand and just never knew what it was there for. Yeah, it's a bit of a plot hole, I suppose. But even then, its meaning is more than sufficient enough, in my opinion, to uh, cover that plot hole and just. Yeah, it's a plot hole, but it doesn't ruin the episode for me in any way. It's still a delightful episode. And I said this in the original review, and I'll say it again. As far as Season 7 was concerned, this episode, much like, I believe, A Royal Problem, and even maybe the episode before this, Discordant Harmony, these three episodes seem significantly better than most of the other episodes in Season 7 so far. And that was one of my biggest concerns about Season 7, is that we weren't going to get a lot of good episodes. And it now seems like we're this far into it, and we're only in 3 good episodes deep, which is a little bit concerning, because even Season 6, to us, felt like it had more good episodes. But I think we're about halfway there. So we'll see if we can get any more really good episodes. But we'll just have to wait and see, I suppose. So, with that being said, that is this review. Stekta Tengtong Tori! And if you did like this re-review, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, farewell, everyone.